In this video, we are going to do a quick practice on how to deform or position our character. Right now I have my character here, which is ready to be positioned, and I just need to get him in the right pose. He's been modeled, straight as much as possible. And one of the techniques that I use, so that I want to keep it simple, is by just moving vertexes. But moving the vertexes is more than just grabbing individually. I usually start from the bigger components to the smaller components. So for example, if I'm going to do the tail, I will just grab all the vertices of the tail that I need to move, and I would just turn on soft selection. So under the soft selection, I will just check it on, and of course based on this I will change the influence of that object, how much fall off would do. Same as if I held my B key, I will just expand that. So I'm going to just put this one to the side here. Now I'm going to go and grab and rotate this tail, but if I rotate it from there, it's going to rotate from that location, and I don't want that. I want to change it by modifying the pivot point of the rotation tool. So I'm going to just call up my settings again. I can edit my pivot point here, and then I just can move it back and position it where I want it to be pivoting. So in this case, for example, I think it would be interesting to pivot it from there. So that's where the tail begins. I'm going to start spinning the whole tail back and then turn it off. So I can go back and rotate it from that point. Now, if I do shift and the less than key, that reduces the selection to the lower level. If I do shift and the greater than key, I will expand my selection, row by row pretty much. In this case, I need to rotate the tail to the opposite direction. So I also can go and edit the point there, or I can just simply press the D key. Of course, just click on press on D, bring it back, place it where I need it to be, D again, and that way I can just rotate back the tail on that. And I'm going to press D again. I'm going to modify it so that go and continue changing the rotation of my object. So that way, and I can go shift less than, and then D again to move the pivot, and then rotate the tail even more. I can just change my holding my B key, change how much influence of that sub-selection is doing, just get it back to do that. In this case, for example, the tail lost some thickness, so I probably will just go back and widen it out a little bit so that I can just maintain the volume of that tail. What if I need to do that on a limb or an arm? So in this case, just like the tail, I would grab exactly the same way from the start moving it from the shoulder, in this case, or the hip, or the base of the head, neck. So let me just do it by this way. I'm going to select let me just close this out. So I'm going to select the vertices again, picking on just to make it easier, I'm going to select all of it up to making sure that this row of vertices is selected. I have soft selection turned on. I'm going to press B to turn it off for a moment. I'm going to just go and say shift greater than. That way I'm selecting upwards row by row of vertices. That way I can just go and grab those there. I know I have it all round perfectly. I'm going to press B to activate my soft selection, hold B to change how much influence I want that soft selection to apply there, and then use my rotation tool again, and of course press D to change the pivot point and go and place it right in the middle of that shoulder where I want it to be, thinking of where the joint pretty much is. That's pretty much the thought behind this one. So I'm gonna just press D one more time. That way I can say, okay, my arm will do that, and maybe it's going to rotate forward a little bit, and then I go shift less than, change my pivot point again, because every time you change the selection, it modifies the pivot point. So I'm just gonna go and bring my pivot point again what I need it to be. Roughly that is good, and then D again, and then I can rotate it forward a little bit more, and then I just go shift less than. There we go. So I just went down all the way to the elbow, change my pivot point, and then bring it back to where I believe the joint is going to be. That should be good enough. D again, and then I'm going to just bend it. I can shrink my subselection. I can shrink my subselection a little bit. If it is affecting too much of the upper part, I just turn off subselection for a moment and bend that way a little bit. That way I can sharpen it up there, and then shift less than there. That way I'm just gonna let me grab the D again, bring it back to where I need it to be. So D again, and then I'm just gonna be able to just sharpen it a little bit. There we go. And then of course shift less than to modify, turn off selection again, press B, and then just D to change the pivot point one more time. And depending on what you need to do there, I invite you to, or suggest you to, plan on really the sketch of your pose before you go and do it. That way you're not just deforming the creature without knowing where you're going. So you always want to have a good plan behind it. So normally working vertexes, moving vertexes is a little bit simpler and easier, as we just did. And usually I use it when I am modifying bigger components and things that make it a lot easier to select as a group. So like the tail or the arm in general, or even up to the wrist or the hand itself. Modifying individual parts could be done this way, but it becomes a little bit more difficult. So let's try that in the next video.